You are an indie maker. You want to make a SaaS to earn sweet internet dollars. You heard that marketing and sales are the hardest parts. But you are smart. You are prepared. You have a plan. You will be doing building in public and selling your product by talking about it. Your audience are the indie makers. They're smart, they're active, they're easy to connect with. They engage a lot and try new stuff easily. They're just like you. It will be a fun and easy journey. But there are a few buts you need to hear. I just have to warn you that your plan has a downside. In this video, I will tell you about pros and cons of selling to indie makers. And why I myself stopped selling to indie makers. All I talk about is my real experience of making. I made a real SaaS and grew it to 16K per month. No startup fairy tales or woke theories here. Only real stuff. Let's start with defining an indie maker. A typical indie maker is a solo entrepreneur or a part of a tiny team, 1-2 people. They are usually tech-savvy, developers, designers, or product people who possess the entrepreneurial spirit. By day, they might be working on a 9-to-5 job in tech, but by night, they are building their dream product, the next big thing, their ticket to freedom from the corporate grind. These folks are the masters of the side hustle. They're active on Twitter, Product Hunt, Reddit. They consume podcasts about startups and binge watch my videos like it's Netflix. And now the interesting part. The median revenue for an indie maker's project is zero. Nothing. Sorry, but this is the reality. Of course, there are some stars who make significant money. The indie maker market is like an iceberg. What you see on the surface, the viral launches, the success stories, that's just the tip. Under the surface, it's a vast community of makers hustling, failing, learning, and only sometimes striking gold. I love the indie makers community, mostly for its passion. I see a lot of talented people led by a dream to really change the world with the power of tech. I just love it. Love all of it. But now, let's look at this community from the business perspective. The biggest problem of the indie makers community is they are makers. A maker loves making. We love building stuff. I can spend a week and host my own entity of an open source software for analytics, for example, Plausible or Posthoc. I'd find more attractive doing than spending dollars to a hosted solution. I also prefer make my own landing page with a free Tailwind CSS template rather than paying for a solution. Why? Because it's fun, it's art, it's challenging. Why a VC-based startup founder will pay you $300 for a landing page and I won't? Because the founder from VC is in a huge urgency. Let me explain how VC works. You raise money, then you raise more money, then you make exit or go to IPO. To constantly raise money, you need to burn money. Otherwise, why give you more if you still have dollars? At the same time, you cannot not raise. It's a red flag that something is not okay with your company. So VC guys need to burn their cash ASAP to get another tranche. This is why their team has hundreds of tasks to do. Saving their time is a huge benefit. It's okay to spend $1,000 to save time. An indie maker, we cool. You're not in a hurry, enjoying the process, learning along the way, making tweets. Here's a good example of my friend. The guy asks for a recommendation for a server monitoring tool, his preferences with a web interface, shows memory, CPU, and bandwidth usage. And third, I don't have to sign up for a SaaS to use this. The guy doesn't want to sign up for SaaS. Understandable. The second big problem of selling to indie makers is they don't reinvest much because they have nothing to reinvest. An average indie maker makes $0. Yes, indie makers are poor. Someone just had to say it. So here's an example from my subreddit. Let me quote. I'd like to offer a service to bootstrappers to save them as much dollars as possible. The service would be a flat fee of close to $50 per month and be a bit of Swiss Army knife. It might include a Rocket Chat instance, an AppFlow instance, Supabase instance. It's a huge bundle. Imagine this offer being sold to a company of 100 people. You can charge $5K per month easily. This guy will earn 100x less because they target indie makers. Let's see another example. Unicorn platform, my previous SaaS. I relied on indie makers building in public heavily during my growth. This approach helped me to kickstart the product. But the real money came from startups, companies, not indie makers. Unicorn Platform's special plan for indie makers called Maker brings less than 20% of the total revenue, has 4x less LTV and 2x higher churn. If I had a tool that serves only to indie makers, I wouldn't be able to sell it for 800k. An example, I had a client who make websites for plumbers in Australia. He made like 50 websites. Since I didn't have a special plan for this audience, I was charging him like $150 per month for those 50 websites. What do you think would happen to my MRR if I found 100x more guys like this? An Australian plumber makes 85k per year. I could also charge them 10x more. I could sell my SaaS not for 800k. It could be millions. But I made a mistake of targeting indie makers only. A mistake of thinking that indie makers are my main audience. But if things are so negative, why thousands of indie makers still invest colossal time in content creation to be seen on X and Product Hunt, myself included? Well, because there's a good reason for that. The first, you're selling to yourself. Imagine if your target audience was basically you. You understand their pain points because you have lived them. No need for extensive market research. You are the market research. The second reason, feedback. Feedback, a lot of feedback. Indie makers aren't just customers. They're product people. When they give feedbacks, it's not just I like it or I want this button to be blue. It's detailed, technical, and often genius. It's like having a product team of hundreds for free. Third reason, the most important point, the viral effect. Remember how active indie makers are on social media? When we love a product, they shout it. One happy customer can turn into a mini marketing campaign. Others are not always like this. Devs, for example, are super hard to turn into fans. If you ever visited Reddit, you know what I'm talking about. And the last reason, easy marketing. Simply build in public. You know those Twitter threads about how I made 1k in a week. Indie makers can do that. Your journey becomes your marketing. Every milestone, every feature launch, every learning, it's all content that your audience craves. You can quickly earn money. Not big money, but it's still something. Even a few hundreds of MRR is important for your motivation. Fifth reason, there are 200,000 makers. This might not sound huge, but it's growing fast. With each tech layoff, each quit my job to follow passion posts, the indie makers community expands. Tech and no-code is also evolving, attracting new kinds of makers. So yeah, it's growing. And it's always a good idea to be in the growing market because you also grow without any additional effort. The sixth reason, you can sell them often. Indie makers are serial product launchers. Today we have an idea, tomorrow one more, they validate fast, they build fast, they like making side projects. If they love your tool just for one project, they will likely use it for their next 5. This worked for me when I was making Unicorn Platform, the landing page builder. Every new launch requires a new landing page. I could sell it to one maker many times. Another example is my current project. It generates a SaaS video teaser. One maker will generate a video for every of their projects. The seventh reason, easy to sell. Indie makers are smart. Selling to an indie maker means less time explaining why your product matters. They get it. They are living it. Half your pitch is done before you even open your mouth. Besides, an indie maker is the decision maker. No need to do the work of finding out who is responsible for writing checks in a particular company. You just sell to the person you're talking with. The eighth reason, the network effect. This is my most recent idea. I'm heavily betting on it right now. Indie makers often belong to another bubble. An indie maker may be also a developer, a freelancer, an employee, an owner of an offline business, a SEO expert, a copywriter. These bubbles are important for your business, but you can't target them all. It requires much time and effort. But if you impress one indie maker who is also a video editor, you will have access to the video editors community without having to market them. So what's the conclusion here? The indie makers movement is a great party to be in. It's definitely beneficial for your business, and yes, it can help you to make money online. But taking indie makers as your main audience is a mistake because of two reasons. They prefer to solve problems by making, not buying. And the second, they don't have any revenue to reinvest. So guys, let's use our sweet bubble as a kickstarting platform, not as an end goal. Let's brainstorm more ideas of marketing to non-indies. If you really want to change the world, we need to look broader. If you're making a hosting platform and all you have are cheap plans for indies, consider adding plans for corporates and some corporate-related features such as SSO login and extra security. Analyze your customers base. Identify any customers who aren't a typical indie maker. Understand their need. Start creating content aimed at decision makers in companies. For example, you can create white papers or case studies showcasing how your product solves problems for various businesses. Consider also hustling on LinkedIn too, not only on Twitter. Make partnerships or integrations with tools commonly used by larger businesses. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.